Hello everyone, welcome to Nobody's Tribe. I hope to be in this moment a transmitter of presence and of peace and of possibly higher perspective, of only being conducive to your journey that often has lots of problems that arise. And this topic that I'm going to speak on today is of the nature of problems and the search for enlightenment. So, as you go into your journey, there's many problems, seeming problems that arise. Problems are of infinite nature, just like you. And you noticed you can always solve many problems or get them to seem less important, for their relevance goes away due to time or whatever it may be, but more always arise, and they're infinite. And I mean, when I say infinite, I mean they're infinite, as in you may know somebody that is always keen on finding problems. They could literally find a problem with any situation. A situation you may see that doesn't have any problems. It's good. It's, you figured you've got it. All the knots worked out or whatever, and they seem to find all sorts of very, very serious problems, and you're kind of like, wow, like that is a lot of imagination you have there to find all of those problems or those issues in that situation. So, as one tries to manifest their physical life, which is what everybody's trying to do, is they're trying to control their physical life in one aspect or another, they run into many problems. And the problems become overwhelming for many, to the point where they seek something beyond problems, beyond conflict. And some may call that enlightenment. In other traditions or religions, they call it salvation. And salvation or enlightenment is where everybody truly is seeking freedom from the seeming problem. So then they seek enlightenment, or they search for salvation. And of course, what I call the conceptual self, the self-created identity, some call it the ego. The conceptual self, of course, in the seeking of enlightenment, which is the freedom from problems, enlightenment becomes its biggest problem or its biggest endeavor. And it being such a big focus, it becomes such a big problem. How, the lack of enlightenment becomes a problem. Literally, not something that you have becomes a problem, but the lack of something becomes a problem. And it is something that must be worked towards. And it always is something that is in the future. I mean, of course, you could never have enlightenment now, because then there would be nothing to search for, right? Well, seemingly so, but that's not the case. For the nature that I talk about today of enlightenment and problems is that through this modality of there being inner and outer problems. And no problem is truly a problem if it's an outer problem. For outer problems always exist. And the nature of form that we exist in, outer problems are what you could say, I can't find words right now. I have all these words and then I make a video and I can't find any words. Inevitable. That's what I was going to say, inevitable. Problems on the level of physical life and physical bodies and physical interactions are always going to have seeming problems, or what, as I would call it, is momentums moving in different directions that seem to clash and cause a confusion from either side, and a seeming problem, a discontinuity, a slowing down of the momentum of what needs to be happening in an organized manner. That is always going to happen in this type of experience. So the idea is of allowing outer problems, which again is going to be the outer problems, is going to, it could still be a problem that you have with somebody or a problem that somebody has with you. So it can still involve you, but an outer problem on the level of form, on the level of interaction, on the level of relationships, or whatever it may be, those problems are not truly problems unless you allow those problems to become inner problems. And what I mean is that you turn what is happening into psychological suffering and a demanding that what is should not be. And if you are demanding that what is should not be, you are not giving validity to external reality. You're not giving validity to external issues. And there is a distrust. You are distrusting. Is there a better word for that? You're not trusting the outer experience that is very valid, and you are demanding, and you are basically using an emotion to say this should not be. This is wrong. And by doing so, you are allowing outer circumstances to create inner problems. And when you do that, the solution to the problem becomes invisible. And even if you do find a solution in one level or another, that solution is going to be temporary, and it's only going to be on the surface. It's going to be a problem made out of the energy of an internal problem that you have literally created out of a non-existent outer problem. I mean, the problem out there may be real on one level, but again, all outer problems are as they are. They are not problems. They are just data, circumstances, neutral interactions that can be adjusted and moved and flowed in what manner. What you may see as a problem may actually be something that saves your life, physically speaking. In one level or another, they are not problems. So, if you allow outer problems to become inner problems, that is when the actual manifestation and creation of suffering and of not being able to fix problems, or being able to temporarily fix a problem only for another one to come up and cause more inner turmoil. So the actual energy that causes more serious problems that really get into you and that really alter how you feel, causing anxiety or whatever it may be, a loss of you feeling your connection to the universe or your connection to the whole, or a doubting of your experience, a doubting of yourself, those will only continue to manifest as long as you allow them within you. So, going back to the topic of enlightenment, whereas someone would seek enlightenment so that they can get rid of problems. Enlightenment doesn't do such a thing. Enlightenment, the idea of enlightenment does not get rid of problems or challenges, or to get rid of the very, challenging nature of experience. Enlightenment is no longer allowing outer problems to become inner problems. There is inner space, there is inner acceptance, and there is outer experience. Outer experience is as it is. It is not a problem. It is only outer experience. It is only content of your life. It is only circumstances. It is neutral. It doesn't mean it's neutral and that there's no emotion and there's no intensity. It's just that the outside world is no longer giving you value or telling you whether or not you are valid or whether or not you are whole, whether or not you are complete. All problems are just more experiences, and the problem is the path, and that is fully understood. So when the self or the ego or the conceptual self is turning turning enlightenment into another problem, it is because it is afraid of not having that power of feeling at war with its experience. That actually gives it its sense of self, and it feels like it may dissolve, and it may not be able to be its very solid self that is against the world. And it doesn't want to lose that, so it makes enlightenment this huge, huge thing it must achieve someday. But again, it can't, because it has to be another problem for it. So don't allow problems in, I guess I could say. Space is required, and what I mean by space is you have to hold the space for the dramas that happen in your experience. And in doing so, all you're doing is giving up the story, giving up the definitions and the beliefs about certain situations. If a situation arises and it makes you feel very negative about your life or negative about your future, understand that that negative feeling is letting you know that that belief system does not reflect reality, the reality of yourself. That belief system is it's showing you what doesn't work in your reality. It's showing you what you do not vibrate to anymore. And that's generally a feeling of lack. Lack is something that causes all suffering, is the belief in lack. And the belief that your experience is somehow wrong and it shouldn't be, or you shouldn't be, or things, so-and-so shouldn't be doing what they're doing, and it is all wrong. That is a belief in lack, that this should not be happening. Doesn't mean you don't recognize things that are what you don't prefer, but if something happens that causes you to have a fear and lack, just say that this is not something you prefer, but do not allow the problem within, and allow a space. And even if the problem comes in and you have a lot of inner turmoil, again, allow that. And in doing so, you don't add another layer of negativity and suffering and problem creating on top of the fact that you are allowing an internal problem. All this teaching is going towards one center point, which is your inner state being the focus of your life. And it does not mean that your inner state always has to be 100%, that you're just shooting out rainbows and butterflies. No, the point is that you are harboring and protecting your inner state, whatever it is. Even if your inner state is angry, you are still adding space, and you're adding an acceptance of that inner state without bashing it. And if your inner state is sleepy, you aren't adding inner resistance of, I shouldn't be sleepy, I need to be awake, I need to be more focused. You're just like, okay, I am sleepy, this is what is. I can either take a nap, or I can go on in peace with my sleepiness. There is always a choice in harboring your inner state. And in doing so, your outer circumstances will always, your outer circumstances will always begin to reflect that inner state. Slowly but surely, through very subtle means at first. But again, it is the nature of our experience that our outer reality reflects our inner state. And for many, they are so stuck on copying their outer experience that their outer experience is always a reflection of their inner state that was copying their outer experience. So you are just copying what's copying you, and copying what's copying you, and copying what's copying you, and creating a reoccurring dream. And that's no fun. Well, I mean, for some people, they really love it. They just love living an endless Groundhog Day of negative emotions. But many are tired of that, as I was very tired of that. I touched on lots of topics today, and I bounced all over the place a little bit. But I love you all, and I appreciate your conscious participation in my videos, and I hope they benefit your life, and they transmit peace and presence to you, and know that your journey is valid. And I love you all. As always, safe travels in the now.